What's up, guys? Does anyone else feel like the lines between a road bike, gravel bike, and mountain bike are being blurred these days? I look in my garage and I have a Tarmac SL7, an open upper, and a Specialized Epic, and I can't help but ask myself, wouldn't it be nice to just have one bike, a Quiver-Killer, a do-it-all bike, and N equals 1? I think I might have found it in the new Specialized Crux. I want to give you a real-world review of what it's like to ride the Crux. If you're looking for tech specs, you can go to the Specialized website. If you're looking for a really in-depth review, I would check out Cycling Tips. James Wong did an excellent review on the new Crux just last week. I'm here to give you a review from a guy who's just an average rider and someone who's really been looking for that N equals 1 and that do-it-all bike or the Quiver-Killer. I've had the Crux for a while now. I put enough miles on it to know that it really does hold its own. So for reference, I didn't go out and get the $12,000 S-Works build. I built this from the frame up. So I pulled the existing parts from my open upper, the Zip 303S's, Panaracer Gravel King SK tires. I'm running SRAM Force with a 42 chainring in the front and a 1052 cassette in the back. And I think it's a great setup. And I think it's probably a smart way to build up the Crux as opposed to going out and just buying the full S-Works build with the new Explorer group set. I just don't really think that's economical, and for most of us, it's really not worth it. As a reference, we're typically riding from our home 6 to 7 miles just to get to fire road or a single track or any kind of dirt, and then we're riding 8 to 10 miles in the dirt, and then another 6 to 7 miles back home on the roads. So between 50 and 60% of our time riding gravel is actually spent on the road getting to the gravel. What is the Crux like to ride? Well, the Crux feels like a high-end road bike that has the ability to go off-road. The handling is sharp yet forgiving. And if I were to compare it to the handling of the Tarmac SL7, I would say that it's not quite as razor sharp, which I think for a gravel bike, you don't want it to be as razor sharp. When you're on the road, it gets up and goes really, really quickly, just like the Tarmac, which is saying a lot because I think the Tarmac is a very quick bike. The one area where you do notice that it is a gravel bike is when you're just out in the wind. It doesn't feel quite as aero. And I say that doesn't feel because I would actually love to see the data on the Aethos versus the Tarmac SL7 versus the new Crux, because I often wonder how much of that aero feeling is simply a feeling and kind of a perceived feeling of going faster. But either way, it is noticeable that it's not quite as fast in the wind when you're on the Crux. The Crux actually reminds me a lot of my open upper, which is by far one of my favorite bikes of all time. My only complaints about the upper, and these are really petty complaints, were tire clearance and toe overlap. The tire clearance on the open upper is limited to 40 millimeters. I was once able to get 42s on there, but it was a really, really tight fit. Other than that, I loved the open upper. It was such a blast. I just enjoyed that bike every single time I got on it, and I think it will go down as one of my favorite bikes of all time. The Crux solves both of these issues. I have no more toe overlap, and now I can fit 47 millimeter tires. And for me, it's as close to the do-it-all Quiver-Killer bike as I can get. It does 90% of what my Tarmac does and 90% of the mellow mountain bike rides that I want to do on my Epic. And it genuinely is just a joy to ride whenever I get on it. So the question remains, can the Crux, which does 90% of what my Tarmac does and 90% of the riding that I do with my Epic, can that replace both of those bikes? I think the answer is maybe. Now, if you add 2 different wheel sets, double chain rings up front, I think the answer becomes very clear. I think the answer is yes. I think it is the do-it-all Quiver-Killer bike, and I couldn't be more stoked to be on the Crux this year. Guys, thanks so much for watching this video about the Crux. This is a bit of a departure from what I typically do with all the van stuff, but I think it's still relevant. Often when we travel with vans, we're traveling with bikes. That's how we get around when the van is parked. For me, the Crux is that bike. It's gonna allow me to go on the road, on the gravel, on the occasional single track. It's just perfect. If you like this video, hit the like button. If you wanna subscribe, hit the subscribe. Thanks so much. See you soon.